Every time you explain yourself, praise too easily, or rush to comfort, you lose a little power. Watch this video and learn how to flip the dynamic and make them work for your approval instead. Approval is not affection, it is power, and the sooner you understand that, the sooner you start to see why so many people live their lives feeling drained and overlooked. They confuse being liked with being respected. They think smiles and kind words mean influence, but influence does not come from affection, it comes from scarcity. The truth is, most people hand out their approval like loose change. They give it to everyone, and then they wonder why no one values it. They think if they compliment enough, agree enough, laugh at enough jokes, then people will return that energy. But what happens instead is the opposite. Their approval becomes cheap, and cheap approval never creates respect. If you walk into a room and everyone knows that your nod, your praise, your attention is rare, people lean in. They adjust their posture. They choose their words carefully. They want to win something that feels hard to get. That is the hidden currency of approval. It is not about kindness or generosity. It is about control. People chase what is scarce, and if your approval is not easily earned, then it becomes a prize. This is not about being cold or cruel. It is about learning the psychology that runs under every interaction. What people call respect, status, reputation, all of it is tied to who controls approval. Think about the people who once had you chasing their attention. It could have been a teacher, a boss, a parent, or even someone you were drawn to romantically. They did not need to say much. Sometimes they said nothing at all, but when they finally looked at you, acknowledged you, or gave you a small sign that you had their respect, it stayed with you. Why? Because approval works like gold. The less of it there is, the more weight it carries. You can shower someone with constant validation, but it will never land the same way as a single word from someone who rarely gives it. Most people misunderstand this and think being generous with praise makes them loved. What it actually does is lower their position. If you approve of everything, then nothing you give matters. People stop trying to earn it. They stop valuing you as the one who grants it. Approval has to be treated like a resource, and when you do, you discover that it shapes how others treat you. In business, the leader who does not hand out easy recognition keeps his team sharp. In relationships, the partner who does not need to constantly reassure commands more respect. In social settings, the one who stays selective with their approval becomes the center of gravity without ever asking for it. Approval is power because it is silent control. It shapes behavior without commands. It makes people move closer without being pushed. And the one who masters it understands this simple truth. You do not win by being liked, you win by being valued, and value always comes from scarcity. Most people spend their lives confusing attention with approval, and in doing so, they give away the very thing that could have made them powerful. They think if they are seen often enough, if their name is always in the conversation, if their presence fills every space, then people will respect them. But attention is not respect, attention is not validation, attention is noise, and the world is already full of noise. What separates those who rise is not how much attention they receive, but how selective they are with the approval they give. When your approval is rare, it becomes valuable. When your approval is constant, it becomes worthless. You can see this truth everywhere if you look closely. The person who comments on every post, who laughs at every joke, who tries to be part of every conversation, eventually fades into the background. People know they will always be there, always available, always ready to give a reaction, so no one chases their attention. Compare that to the one who is quiet, the one who does not respond to everything, the one whose words are measured and rare. When they speak, the room goes still. When they acknowledge someone, that person feels it for days. The difference is simple. One has made their attention cheap, the other has made it scarce, and scarcity is what creates value. Most people give away too much of themselves, not because they are weak, but because they are afraid of being forgotten. They think if they are not seen, they will not matter. So they chase attention to prove they exist. But this mindset is the exact reason they are overlooked. The truth is, you do not gain importance by flooding people with your presence. You gain importance by controlling your presence, by deciding when to appear, when to speak, when to acknowledge. The less you offer, the more people crave it. Think about the people in your life whose opinion you truly value. Chances are they are not the ones who always talk, always flatter, always respond instantly. They are the ones who say little, but when they do, you pay attention. You remember it because it is rare. Approval, when it is selective, shapes people. It makes them strive harder. It makes them lean forward. It makes them wonder what they must do to earn it. This is the hidden psychology most never see. Attention is about being noticed. Approval is about being pursued, and being pursued is where power begins. If you want to change how others see you, stop giving yourself away so easily. Stop thinking that being everywhere will make you respected. It will not. It will make you predictable, and predictability kills value. Instead, become selective. Hold back your approval until it means something. Let people work for it. Let them feel the gap between silence and recognition, because once they do, they will not just notice you, they will chase you. Approval works like gold, and gold has value not because it is shiny, but because it is scarce. People do not fight for what is easy to get, they fight for what feels limited, what feels rare, what feels almost out of reach. The same rule applies to human interaction. If you hand out praise to everyone, if you compliment without thought, if you show approval at every small thing, then your recognition loses its weight. It no longer feels like gold, it feels like dust, and no one bends down to pick up dust. But when your approval is rare, when it is carefully measured, it becomes a treasure. People lean in for it. They change their behavior for it. They start to compete for it. And the moment they are competing, you are in control. Think about the teachers or mentors you respected the most. They were not the ones who praised you for every little thing. They were the ones who made you work harder just to hear a single word of recognition. When they finally gave it, it stayed with you because you knew it was earned. That is the law of scarcity at work. The value of approval does not come from how loud it is or how frequent it is, but from how rare it is. Rarity makes people desperate for it, and desperation makes them chase. Most people misunderstand this and believe approval should always be given freely. They think generosity will make them loved, but what it actually does is make them invisible. When everyone has your approval, no one values it. It is like a market flooded with currency. The more of it there is, the less it buys. But when you restrict it, when you treat it like something precious, its power multiplies. A single nod in a crowded room can outweigh 1,000 words if the one who gives it is known to be selective. In relationships, in business, in social settings, the law of scarcity creates the same effect. If you always respond, always praise, always give validation, people stop working for it. But if you hold back, if you give it only when it truly matters, people adjust. They start bringing their best. They start showing effort. They start looking for ways to earn what you rarely give. That is when your approval stops being a kindness and becomes a prize. And when you become the prize, you no longer chase, you are chased. Approval is not just words, it is energy, and people sense its weight. If your energy is everywhere, it feels cheap. If your energy is rare, it feels powerful. This is why the strongest figures in history, in leadership, in influence, were not the ones who spoke the most, but the ones who chose their words carefully. Their silence made people crave their voice. Their restraint made their recognition unforgettable. That is the lesson you must remember. Scarcity builds value, and value builds power. Approval is gold, but only if you treat it like gold. The average person thinks praise is the fastest path to being liked, so they pour it out freely, filling every space with compliments, nods, and reassurance. They believe that if they are generous enough with words, people will feel grateful and return the affection. But what really happens is the opposite. The more you praise, the less your praise is worth. The more you give, the less people care. What starts as kindness becomes background noise, and background noise is ignored. People do not crave what they already have in abundance. They crave what is withheld. This is where silence takes its role. Silence, when used with intent, becomes louder than praise. A pause before speaking, a measured look, a calm stillness after someone has tried to impress you, all of these create tension. And tension is powerful. People cannot stand uncertainty. They want to know where they stand with you. They want to know what you are thinking. When you give them nothing, when you do not rush to fill the air with approval, they lean in. They work harder. They wonder more. They crave your recognition like water in a desert. That craving is the seed of influence. Think about the times when someone important to you held back their praise. Maybe a teacher who looked at your work and simply nodded without comment. Maybe a boss who stayed silent after you presented something. Maybe a person you admired who gave you no reaction at all. In those moments, you replayed everything. You questioned yourself, you wanted more. When eventually they gave even a small acknowledgement, it felt huge. It felt earned. That single drop of recognition outweighed 100 empty compliments from others. Silence is not coldness, it is control. The one who withholds creates demand. The one who withholds makes others step forward to fill the gap. If you gush with approval, you do all the work. If you stay still, others start working to earn it. They begin to perform for you, to chase you, to prove themselves to you. And all of this happens without you lifting a finger. That is the hidden power of silence. Of course, silence must be deliberate. If it comes from insecurity or shyness, it has no effect. But when it comes from confidence, when it comes from choice, it radiates strength. A simple pause after someone speaks can feel heavier than paragraphs. A glance can make someone question their entire approach. A delayed response to a message can make the sender restless, checking, waiting, wondering. The less you give, the more they want. The more they want, the more power you hold. People think they are loved for the words they give, but often they are respected for the words they do not. Silence is not absence, it is presence. It is a reminder that your approval is not automatic. It is not cheap, it is not for everyone. And when people feel that, they begin to chase it. They do not just want your praise, they need it, because silence has made it rare. The mirror trick is one of the most subtle yet powerful moves you can use, because instead of pouring out validation, you turn the spotlight back on the other person and make them question themselves. Most people are quick to reassure, to explain, to confirm, to make others feel safe. They think this earns loyalty, but in truth, it only breeds complacency. When people know exactly where they stand with you, when they can predict your every reaction, they stop trying. They no longer push themselves. They no longer crave your approval because it is already guaranteed. Certainty kills effort, while ambiguity fuels pursuit. When you reflect validation back instead of handing it out, you create a silent pull. A person might say something clever, expecting praise, but you give them only a thoughtful look. They laugh nervously, waiting for a response, and in that pause they reveal more of themselves. They adjust their tone, they add another detail, they keep trying to win what you have not yet given. Without saying a word, you've made them work harder. You've made them invest. This is the mirror at play. You're not feeding them with approval. You are letting them feed themselves with doubt, and that doubt drives them to chase your recognition. Think about how much power is hidden in not answering directly. If someone asks, "Was that good?" instead of rushing to say yes, you tilt your head, you smile slightly, you say, "Perhaps." Instantly, their mind begins to race. They wonder what you truly think. They replay the moment in their head. They want to prove themselves further. The less you give, the more they try to earn. People are wired to seek closure, and when you withhold it, you create a hunger that only you can satisfy. This is not cruelty, it is control. It is not about making others feel small, but about keeping them engaged, about pulling their focus toward you. The mirror works because it reflects their own need back at them. You do not declare your judgment openly, you let them question their own. They start to measure themselves not against their own standard, but against yours, and that shift changes everything. Suddenly, their effort is not about what they think is enough. It is about what they believe you will recognize as enough. The more uncertainty you allow, the stronger this effect becomes. When people cannot easily read you, they begin to assign more power to you. They think you see more than you say. They imagine depths that may not even exist. And in their imagination, you become larger than life. This is the true advantage of the mirror trick. You let them build your aura with their own thoughts. You do not chase validation, you make them chase yours. And the less they know about where they stand, the more desperate they are to prove they belong. Approval that is given too freely makes people comfortable. Approval that is withheld makes them chase. The mirror trick ensures they are always chasing, always leaning forward, always trying to earn what you never fully reveal. Every nod, every smile, every short word of recognition can become a tool of control when you understand how people respond to approval. Most never stop to think about it. They give out their acknowledgement as if it costs nothing, and because it costs nothing, it earns nothing. But the moment you hold your approval back, the moment you make it clear that it is not automatic, something changes. People start to notice, they start to pay attention, they start to adjust themselves, not because you told them to, but because they want the sign that you see them, that you respect them, that you value what they did. Your approval turns from kindness into leverage. Leverage works because people crave recognition more than they admit. It is built into them. From childhood, they learn to look for a nod from the parent, the teacher, the coach. As adults, they still look for it, though they may not say it out loud. They want to feel significant. They want to know that what they did mattered. And when you do not hand it out easily, they start to compete for it. Two people in a room will work harder if they both want your acknowledgement, not because you asked them to, but because they want to be the one who earns it. That quiet rivalry is proof that you are the prize. This is why approval is far more powerful when used sparingly. A single nod after silence can carry the weight of 1,000 speeches. A calm, "well done," after weeks of stillness can feel like a victory. When people know your recognition is rare, it becomes worth chasing. They bend farther, they push harder, they even start to measure their own worth by whether or not they earned your acknowledgement. That is how influence is built. You are not chasing them, they are chasing you. And the prize is not money or gifts. It is the quiet sign that they have impressed you. In business, this creates teams that push beyond the minimum because they are not satisfied with the paycheck alone. They want the nod from the leader who never gives it without reason. In relationships, it makes your presence magnetic because the other person feels the need to earn your respect again and again. In social settings, it makes people seek your approval before they even realize it, shaping their behavior around you, adjusting their tone, their effort, their energy. All for a glance that tells them they did enough. Approval becomes leverage when it is no longer about kindness but about control. Not control in the sense of domination, but in the sense of influence. You do not need to shout, you do not need to argue, you do not even need to ask. All you need is the ability to withhold until the right moment, then give just enough to keep the chase alive. When people compete for your recognition, you hold the power without lifting a finger, because in their eyes, you are the prize. The human mind does not hold on to what is given freely, it holds on to what is scarce, what is rare, what feels earned. This is why withholding your approval multiplies its power. If you give it too easily, people forget it as quickly as they receive it. But when you hold it back, when you make others work for it, when you let silence stretch before you finally offer a word, it becomes unforgettable. People can receive praise from a dozen mouths in a single day, yet they will remember the moment you looked at them and gave them what they had been chasing for weeks. That is the weight of rarity. That is how recognition turns into memory, and memory turns into influence. Most people think generosity builds loyalty, so they overpraise, overapprove, overspend their validation. But what actually happens is the opposite. Their approval becomes cheap, and when something is cheap, no one values it. If you hand out smiles and nods to everyone, then your recognition blends into the noise of the room. But if you choose carefully, if you give less, suddenly your approval rises above the rest. It is not lost in the crowd. It becomes the one that matters, the one people talk about later, the one they replay in their minds. Withholding is not about cruelty. It is about creating weight. A compliment that comes every day feels routine, but a compliment that comes after long silence feels monumental. It feels like a mountain finally moved, like a door finally opened. That is why people will chase it. They want the feeling that comes from knowing they did not just receive approval, they earned it. And once they earn it, they will fight to earn it again. You have to understand that value always comes from contrast. A light is only bright when surrounded by darkness. A victory only feels sweet when preceded by struggle. Approval works the same way. If you always give it, there is no contrast, no tension, no hunger. But if you hold back and then release it at the right moment, you create an impact that multiplies in their mind. They will remember your words long after they forget anyone else's, not because you said more, but because you said less. Think of leaders, mentors, or figures you once admired. The moments that stayed with you were never the daily niceties. They were the rare moments when someone you respected finally acknowledged your effort, when someone you looked up to finally gave you the sign that you mattered. Those moments stay alive because they were not handed out like candy. They were scarce, they were earned. You can give this same weight to your approval if you stop giving it away so easily and start making it something that must be won. When you withhold, you do not weaken the bond, you strengthen it. Because once you finally give, it multiplies in value. That is how your recognition becomes unforgettable. That is how your approval becomes power. The chase dynamic begins the moment you stop trying to win people with constant validation and instead make them reach for yours. Most people think the way to be admired is to give as much as possible, to reassure, to praise, to comfort. But all that does is place them in the role of the giver and others in the role of the receiver. It feels noble, but in power it is weakness, because the one who gives too freely is always chasing. Real strength comes from reversing the pattern, from creating a space where others lean forward, where they wonder what you think, where they measure themselves not by their own expectations, but by the possibility of winning your approval. When you master this, something subtle but unmistakable happens. People start to adjust their behavior around you, not because you asked, but because they want the moment of recognition that you have withheld. They lower their voice when you enter. They present their best work with a glance in your direction. They check your reaction before deciding how they feel about their own performance. You have shifted the standard. Their worth is no longer what they decide for themselves. It is what you decide by silence, by presence, by rare acknowledgement. That is the chase. Think of how powerful it is when someone waits for your reaction before knowing how to feel. They tell a story and pause, watching your face for a signal. They share an idea and hesitate until you nod. They may not admit it, but in that pause they reveal the truth. They are chasing your validation. And the more you delay, the more they want it. This is not about arrogance. It is about understanding psychology. People want to be anchored. They want to be guided. And when you make your approval scarce, they begin to seek it like a compass. The chase dynamic only works when you remain calm and consistent. If you flinch, overreact, or gush with approval, the power shifts back to them. But when you hold still, when you remain composed, when you make your recognition something that cannot be predicted, you build tension. And tension creates pursuit. The human mind is restless in uncertainty. It craves resolution. And in social dynamics, resolution comes from winning acknowledgement. So long as you do not hand it out cheaply, people will continue leaning forward, chasing the moment you finally grant it. This dynamic is not about cruelty, it is about control. When you are the one being chased, you are the one in charge. You set the pace, you decide when the game begins and when it ends. And in doing so, you shift the balance of power without saying a word. It is not validation that makes people respect you, it is the chase. Because in the chase, they reveal their need, and in your stillness you reveal your strength. The final stage of power is not found in clever tricks or rehearsed lines. It is found in the aura you create. Aura is what makes people treat you differently before you even speak. It is not about manipulation. It is not about forcing anyone to respect you. It is about the atmosphere that surrounds you when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop giving your approval cheaply. You do not demand respect with words, you command it with presence. You do not ask for approval from others, you withhold yours like oxygen, and because people cannot live without oxygen, they lean in closer, they want it, they chase it, often without realizing why. An aura is not built overnight. It comes from restraint, from consistency, from the discipline to stay still while others scramble for attention. Most people rush to fill silence, they rush to prove themselves, they rush to show that they are good. But the one with aura waits. He lets others expose themselves, he lets others reveal their insecurities, and in that patience, his value grows. The less you react, the more people begin to project onto you. They start to wonder what you are thinking. They start to imagine you know more than you show. They start to build an image of you that is larger than reality. Aura is not what you say, it is what they believe about you, and people believe more when they are left in uncertainty. Think about the most powerful figures you have ever met. They were not the ones who tried to please everyone. They were not the ones who gave endless approval just to be liked. They were the ones who gave little, but when they did, it felt like a gift. They were the ones who could walk into a room and change the energy without saying a word. That is aura. It is not built on effort. It is built on presence. And presence comes from control. From being so composed that nothing seems to shake you. From being so selective that your approval feels like a rare jewel. When people feel that your approval is rare, they begin to shape their behavior around it. They measure their worth not by their own standard, but by whether or not they have impressed you. They lean forward in conversations, they replay interactions in their head, they talk about you when you are not there. Your silence becomes a mirror they cannot escape. Your rare recognition becomes the fuel they crave. And slowly, without asking, you rise above them. You are no longer on their level. You are the one they are reaching for. This is why aura is untouchable value. It cannot be stolen, it cannot be faked, it cannot be forced. It is built by restraint, by discipline, by scarcity. You become the one whose presence matters most, not because you beg for it, but because people cannot stop chasing it. And in that chase, they give you something far greater than attention. They give you significance. Maybe this video helped you see yourself or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.